Hey, good day, everyone. Welcome to the Bert Salazar Retirement Show. My name is Bert Salazar, and I'm going to be the host, as I am every single week. Once again, I enjoy being here with each and every one of you. This is episode 181, and the title for this episode is The Benefits of a Tactical Retirement Blueprint, Part 3. So we've done two of these episodes. So I'm just going to give you an overview of what we're trying to accomplish when we do a tactical retirement blueprint with our clients. But always bear in mind that when it comes to economics, and this is something that I communicate to all my clients on an ongoing basis, is that methods are many and principles are few. Methods are always changing, yet principles never do. So the principles of economics, regardless of market conditions, never change. As long as you stay focused on the economics and what we're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to accomplish from a business perspective, chances are you're going to be very successful in your retirement life. Now, over the last two episodes that we have covered, we've talked about the challenges of retirement. We've talked about the fact that, there's a big difference between the accumulation stages of retirement and the distribution stages of retirement. And what I have tried to do for all of you is using analogy like the mountain climbing analogy, which kind of gives you a feedback as to when you're climbing a mountain, that's when you're trying to put money away for retirement. The rules of engagement are totally different because you're thinking about, contribution levels, rates of returns on your investment, some type of risk that you may be taking, and making certain that it's not above and beyond what any normal person in your category would try to get from a risk standpoint, and how to maximize your contribution so you can get to the summit of that mountain or the summit of retirement, and then give you the ability to start coming down on the other side. Now, when you start coming down on the other side of the mountain, as we have talked about, those are the retirement distribution years. And again, the rules of engagement totally change because you're going from accumulation of assets to distribution of assets. So there are a number of issues that you had never paid attention to, or you had never considered as you were climbing the mountain, that now are going to have a tremendous impact on whether you're going to be successful or not in coming down the mountain to the other side. One of the interesting things that I said to you last week is that if you were trying to climb Mount Everest and you got to the base and you try to hire a Sherpa that would take you to the top of the mountain, and you started to interview a number of them, if most of them would tell you emphatically that they can get you to the top of the mountain, but they're not too sure whether they can bring you back down safely, more than likely none of you would hire any of those Sherpas. So not only do you want to make it to the top of the mountain from a physical standpoint and a retirement standpoint, but you also want to make it down the mountain safely so you can tell the story to your friends and family until the day you die. From a retirement perspective, and making that paradigm shift that is so important for all of us to consider, when you get to the summit of retirement, and for many of you may be age 65, for some of you may be age 70, and you get there and now you say, now what? Now you have all this money, you have all this stuff, you have different portfolios of investments, you may have real estate, you may have all kinds of different things. And now the question is, well, what do you do with it? How are you going to be distributing those assets? Which assets are you going to distribute first and why? So a lot of the questions that you had not paid attention to while you were climbing that mountain of retirement, now you have to pay attention to. So what I'm going to do today, I jotted down a number of issues that I want to make certain that I cover with all of you, because my goal is to provide you not only information, but also education. Because at the end of the day, information without education always, always, always leads to failure. So I'm here to help you. My firm is here to help you. So we're going to have a good time today. All right. So all the foundational products that we use in our tactical retirement blueprint are based on economics and based on risk management, because there's a big difference when it comes to risk management and not doing risk management. Remember, one of the key issues in risk management is called risk transfer. Now, if you look at risk overall in your life, whether it's a retirement risk or personal risk, you know, there are a lot of risks that each and every one of us takes on a daily basis. Now, we have no choice. We have to take those risks. But when you start to do risk management and or risk transfer, you're now trying to either minimize the amount of risk that you're going to take on a daily basis, or you're going to transfer that risk to another entity in order to offset that liability that may be for you. So for instance, life insurance is risk management and risk transfer at the same time. Why? Because tomorrow is promised to no one. So if you own a business, if you have a family, if you have children, you know, if you don't wake up tomorrow morning because tomorrow is promised to no one, there's a tremendous amount of risk available because your family is no longer going to have that paycheck. So what do you try to do? Well, you want to manage that risk. And how do you do that? Well, in the insurance world, you manage that risk by doing risk transfer, which is purchasing a life insurance policy in which now your surviving spouse and or your children and or your estate will be the beneficiaries, because then that policy now becomes salary replacement or asset replacement, as you may want to structure it. So when you go to an insurance company and you purchase $1 million of life insurance, all you're doing is not only managing the risk of you not being here tomorrow morning, but you're also transferring that risk to an insurance company in exchange for a premium. Why? Because an insurance company can manage risk much, much better than each and every one of us individually. And that's why whenever we put a tactical retirement blueprint for a client, we always want to make certain that we manage and divide that tactical retirement blueprint into different sections, but they all have to be tactically put together to minimize and or eliminate risk from a business standpoint. So now, in my discussion with many of my clients, especially those that come to see me for the first time, one of the first questions that I ask all of them is, what keeps you awake at night from a financial standpoint? And many of them just seem dumbfounded. They seem dumbfounded because they have no answer. They have never really thought about their financial life from a what's keeping them awake at night. Now, I'm going to give you what I think are the things that should be keeping you awake at night if you're 5 to 10 years away from retirement. And what are some of the things that you need to pay attention to in order to alleviate those liabilities? Number one, taxes and inflation. That should definitely keep you awake at night, because at the end of the day, taxes are going to have to be much higher in the future than it is today. Now, unless you think that you live in some kind of alternative world in which taxes are not going to have a negative impact on you and your family, and you feel that taxes are going to be lower in the future as they are today, then that would be a different world, and I don't want to live in that world with you. So I'm always going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to the financial world. So taxes and inflation are very important. Taxes are going to eat up a lot of your retirement savings as time goes on. The second culprit out of this issue is inflation, because inflation is a silent killer. It's basically too much money in the economy chasing too few goods. And if you can see in the United States today, inflation is north of 8.5% based on what the government is reporting. But if you really take a look at the essential items that all of us are purchasing on a weekly basis, inflation in the US is anywhere between 13.5 and 16.5%. Now, obviously, for most Americans, they're not making enough income to stay ahead of inflation, which is the goal for every single American. So as you prepare for retirement and as you start thinking about your retirement life, once you get to that summit and now you start to come down on the other side of the mountain, taxes and inflation are going to play an extremely important role. Another area that you need to think about that should be keeping you awake at night is longevity. Why? Because although I always say that tomorrow is promised to no one knows how long you're going to live in retirement. You know, I always tell my clients that I divide retirement, at least all the forecasting, all the targeting, all the planning that I do under the tactical retirement blueprint for my clients is based on a 30-year period, is based on 3 decades in retirement. So if you retire at 65, I am planning you out to age 95. And then I segment those 30 years into 3 separate decades. And I call those decades the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. So the go-go years would be between 65 and 75, as I talked about last week. You're trying to catch up with life, you're traveling, you're spending money. You may actually be spending a lot more money in those first 10 years of retirement or the first decade than you did while you were working, because you're now on a catch-up status or station of your life. Once you get into your mid-70s to your mid-80s, now you start to slow down. You go into the slow-go years. And again, this may not be applicable to everyone. I'm talking about the vast majority of Americans. So if you're someone that is very active, you stay in good shape and so forth, then obviously you would fit into, maybe you can extend the go-go years from 65 to let's say age 80. And I do have certain clients that fit that profile, but the vast majority of my clients are between 65 and 75 in the go-go years, and then 75 to 85 in the slow-go years. Now, in the slow-go years of life, yes, you may still be doing a little bit of traveling and so forth, but now your health is not as good as it used to be during your go-go years. So you're slowing down a little bit. You may be doing some traveling, but not as far and not as long. You may want to stay closer to your children, to your grandchildren, and your immediate family. And then obviously, once you get into your mid-80s, 85 until 95, which is the forecasted death that I put together for my clients, you know, some of you are never going to make it to 95, and some of you may go past age 95. That's what I call the no-go years, because, you know, just waking up on the green side of the grass is a good day. And that's something that's important. Now, always remember that there are certain investments that you put in your retirement plan that are applicable to the go-go years, but not necessarily to the go-go years or the in-between the slow-go years. There are other products that would be apropos all the way through your retirement life. Because if you're coming down the mountain, you know, some of the things that you got to pay attention to are going to be very, very critical for you, including the withdrawal rate risk. So we've talked about taxes and inflation. We've talked about longevity, because you don't know how long you're going to live. The other big issue that should keep you awake at night is the withdrawal rate risk. You know, how much money are you taking every year out of your retirement accounts? Since you don't know when you're going to die, then you're kind of flipping a coin. You don't know how much money you're taking out and if it is adequate for the longevity of your life. Are you taking out too much? Are you taking out too little and not really having a good retirement life? Are you always concerned that if you take out too much and the market drops, you're going to suffer and your income is going to be reduced? That ties me in to the last area that should keep you awake at night, other than taxes and inflation, longevity, and withdrawal rate risk, is the sequencing of return risk. See, when you retire, you have no idea what the market is going to be doing, what the economy is going to be doing. So you may be lucky enough to retire in a period where the market continues, if you have your investments in the market, mutual funds and so forth, it may continue to move up for the next 3 to 5 years, and that would be a good thing, especially during your first 5 years in retirement. But what if you retire in a bad economy? What if you retire like it happened in 2008 and it's happening right now in 2022? What if you retire and all of a sudden the market is dropping, you're losing 10, 15, 20% over a 3 to 5 year period? What impact are those losses, plus the fact that because you're no longer generating an income, you're going to have to take withdrawals out of accounts that are actually losing value every single year? If you do that, then you're definitely going to run out of money before you run out of life. So as you start to come down that retirement mountain, the one big question for you is, what's going to happen in the future? Am I going to make it a third of the way, 2/3 of the way, or am I going to make it all the way to the promised land, which would be in this case age 95 or the bottom of the market, as we have talked about? Those are things that are very, very important. Now, what's interesting about this conversation that I'm having with you today is that this conversation I have with each and every one of my new clients prior to engagement. And then we have a reminder conversation every single year with all of my clients, because life gets in the way, people forget, and so forth. In order for my new clients to understand how it is that we manage our tactical retirement blueprints, and also as a reminder for our existing clients, we have put together a 7-question forecast or questionnaire that we take each and every one of our clients through, which I'm going to walk you through today. Now, the first, and this is what I call the 7 critical questions of retirement. So the first one would be, how old will you be when you run out of money? And that's a very, very important question to understand, because the vast majority of Americans, unless they do proper longevity planning, are going to run out of money before they run out of life. If getting old is bad, getting old and having no money is even worse. So one of the main questions that you should be asking yourself, that should also be keeping you awake at night, is at what point in your life are you going to run out of money in retirement? Second question is, how much income will your retirement assets produce? You reach the retirement summit, you have all this stuff. Some may be very good, some bad, some in between. But now you got to say, well, how much income am I going to generate on an annual basis? Where's the income going to come from? Which assets am I going to invade first, and why? What's going to be the tax liability on these assets as I start to invade them? These are questions that are very, very critical for most of us to understand if we want to have a successful retirement life. The third question is, how much income is needed for your retirement lifestyle? Now, each person is a world. Each person is an individual, so you really don't know. But you have to kind of figure out what you want your retirement life to be. If you want to stay in town, you don't want to do much traveling, you don't enjoy flying, maybe you want to drive around the United States a little bit if you live in the US, then it's easier than if you say, Bert, I want to travel the world. Or I want to go live somewhere else. I want to go to Europe and live in Europe for a couple of years so I can travel all throughout Europe. The distribution rate is going to be totally different for these two individuals. So how much income is it going to be needed to maintain and sustain your standard of living? And that's a question that only you and your family can answer from that perspective. How much will taxes impact your retirement accounts? Again, if 100% of your retirement accounts are in qualified plans like IRAs, 401ks, SEPs, pensions, which are totally taxable, then obviously taxes are going to have a tremendous impact on your retirement assets. Now, if 50% of your assets happen to be in taxable accounts, and the other 50% happens to be in non-taxable accounts, now you can alleviate some of the tax liabilities, especially if you have the ability to choose how much to take out of your retirement accounts that are taxable on a given year, and then offset that liability with money so you can take from your non-taxable accounts on that same year. So that's important to understand. How much of your retirement income is guaranteed? This is another question that we ask our clients. Remember, none of these things, any of you, more than likely, I know there's going to be an exception to the rule, but most of you uniquely have never really sat down to think about, because you've been living on the accumulation stage of life for so many years that all of a sudden when you reach the summit, you don't realize that it's more difficult to manage money in retirement than to manage those same assets while you were still working. Because if you had a bad year, you didn't need that money. So therefore, you were still making contributions to your 401ks and IRAs, so you could offset some of those losses in the hopes that in the next 2 to 3 years, you would be able to recapture those losses with better market conditions. When you're in retirement, it's a different ballgame. You're no longer generating income. For you, every day is Saturday night. So therefore, how you manage all of these things are very, very important for you and your family. So whenever I ask what percentage of your retirement income is guaranteed, I get this dumbfounded look in the vast majority of my clients. And by the way, let me pause here for a second. If I were to ask you what percentage of your retirement assets would you like, or what percentage of your income in retirement would you like to have guaranteed? If you're not telling me 100%, then something is definitely wrong with you, or you don't understand finances, and most important, you don't understand economics. So at the very, very best, 100% of your retirement income should be guaranteed. At the very worst, 0% should be guaranteed. So somewhere in between, you're the happy camper. You need to figure out, what makes you happy. Do you want to get 50% guaranteed, 70% guaranteed, and the other 30%, you will kind of play with it? Okay, that's okay. That's your life. It's not mine. I'm just going to give you the perfect scenario. And there's only one, by the way. There's only one perfect scenario from an economic standpoint. So those are things that we try to go through in the 7 critical questions that we ask our clients. Now, another question is, and this will be next to the last question, is how much will your income be reduced if your assets suffer a stock market crash? Very good question, because in retirement, the stock market has a correction every 5 years. So if you're going to live in retirement for 30 years, on the average, there are going to be 6 market corrections. And how are you going to protect your assets as you're taking money out on an annual basis if you have to kind of foresee, look ahead, and see 5 years of potential liabilities? And once the market corrects, you don't know how long it's going to take for the market to recover. So those are things that we cover with our clients when we do a tactical retirement blueprint for them, because we want to minimize those liabilities in order to help them create the type of retirement that all they have to do and all they have to worry about is waking up on the green side of the grass the next day, because everything else is taken care of. Taxes, inflation, longevity planning, withdrawal rate risk, and most important, the sequencing of return risk that we've been talking about. If you're able to manage and or transfer those liabilities, your retirement life is going to be almost perfect, to say the least. And those are things that we strive to make certain that we address with each and every one of our clients. And then the last question is, what percentage of your assets are protected from stock market volatility? And this is a cornerstone of our tactical retirement blueprint. Will Rogers used to say that he was more concerned about the return of his money than the return on his money. So just think about that for a minute, okay? Now, let me get real quick into what we consider to be the foundational TRB products that we deal with. TRB, short for Tactical Retirement Blueprints. And these are the products. Now, there are many others, but these are the foundational products because we feel very strongly that if you stay with the principles of economics, there's going to be, we want to create certainty for you and your family throughout your retirement by creating minimum foundational strategies that you cannot deal without. So these are important. Now, we use different products depending on the goals and objectives of our clients. So for instance, we use in the portfolio that we manage for our clients once we completed Tactical Retirement Blueprint. And always remember that the strategy is much, much more important than each individual product. But if you have the right strategy and you have the right products, and then you merge them together and you marry them, now you're creating a very successful retirement life. So we use fixed index annuities. Why do we use fixed index annuities? Because fixed index annuities give you the ability to participate in a lookalike of whatever the market would be doing, the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the Russell 2000, the Russell 1000, and you can emulate those returns and apply them to your fixed index account. But if they suffer any losses, your fixed index account does not suffer any losses. As a matter of fact, your principal is always guaranteed by the insurance company, which are enormous conglomerate of companies that will guarantee that you will never lose a single dollar of principal. And if you earn interest on those fixed index accounts, let's say you open an account with $100,000 and the first year you get 10% return. I'm just giving you a number. And now you have $110,000 in your account. Even if the year after that, the market drops 20%, you stay at $110,000. You don't go back to the original 100 that you put in. No, because the guarantees are based not only on the amount of the contribution, but any growth on the accounts that have already given to you in your account values, so you will not lose from that. Why? Because even if the market dropped 20% in that second year, you stayed at $110,000. So if the market in the third year recovers, instead of you having to go back from 110 to, let's say, 90, and then try to climb that ladder again, you are at 110. You just keep moving north. Now, in the year that you lost 20%, your account value was not credited any interest because the market lost money, but your account value remained the same. So as a way to manage the sequencing of returns that keeps you awake at night, we use fixed index annuities as a way to reduce that liability of the sequencing of return that the vast majority of Americans are facing every single day of their lives. So that's important. That's a big product that we use for many of our clients. Now, the other one is what we call immediate annuities. And immediate annuities, nothing more, nothing less than you taking a chunk of money. And by the way, in the fixed index annuities, it could be qualified money, could be IRA money, could be 401k money, or could be non-qualified money like $100,000 that you had in your savings account and you wanted to buy a fixed index annuity with, or it could be Roth money. So just remember that the fixed index annuity is just a vehicle. How do you title it and how do you name it depends on where the money is coming from. The same thing with immediate annuities. Immediate annuities are supposed to deferred annuities. Immediate annuities start giving you an income immediately, usually within the first 30 to 60 days for most immediate annuities. And what you do in this case, what you're doing there is you're doing risk transfer. Because of the fact that you don't know how long you're going to live, you say, you know, Bert, I want to take a portion of my assets, let's say, depending on the tactical retirement blueprint and what the recommendation may be. And we normally use the rule of 100. So we take your age from 100, and that's the amount that we want to use in guaranteed accounts and immediate annuities. So if you're 70 years of age, 70% of your money should be in guaranteed accounts and or immediate annuities. And then the other 30%, obviously, we can diversify. So if you take $200,000 or $500,000 or $1 million, depending on your portfolio, and you purchase an immediate annuity, what you're doing is you're taking that money, you're going to an insurance company, you say, look, I want to give you this money. I have no idea how long I'm going to live. I know my parents lived in their 90s. You know, my grandparents lived into their 90s. I'm fairly healthy. So there's a high probability I'm going to live a long life. I just don't know if I'm going to be able to manage that money adequately enough for me not to run out of money before I run out of life. So what you're doing is you're turning that money over to an insurance company, and then they're going to give you a guaranteed income for the rest of your life. You could live to 120, and that income will continue to go. And obviously, if you die before, there are ways that you can protect the income from just going away altogether. It could go to your surviving spouse or other beneficiaries. So there are many different ways in how to carve and how to create that tactical distribution plan. But at the end of the day, it's like having your Social Security benefits. See, your Social Security benefits, as long as they remain viable in the United States, and there are a lot of questions about that, but traditionally speaking, your Social Security benefits are guaranteed for life. So if you live to age 95, as long as you wake up on the green side of the grass, that Social Security benefit will continue to come in. And if you live to 105, 110, or 120, that Social Security benefit is supposed to be paid to you until the day that you close your eyes forever. So by making that risk transfer, you don't have to worry about whether you're going to have enough money in retirement or not, because you can count on that monthly paycheck coming in for as long as you live. So that we use immediate annuities along those lines. Now, we also use insurance products like life insurance. We use whole life insurance. We use index life, because this is another way that you can take money out of your retirement accounts on a tax-preferred basis. So we use and these products they fall under Rule 7702 of the IRS code. So we use that tremendously with our clients, along with fixed index annuities and immediate annuities, because 7702 plans, for those clients that have the ability to put more and more money in it, can be a tremendous tool, because now you can start to segment those distributions. You can take some of the assets, start taking the money out between 65 and 75, then use other assets 75 to 85, and then use other assets 85 until the day you die. 7702 plans, or life insurance plans, are earmarked to fit the 3 decades of retirement. So at any point in time, we can go in and take money out on a tax-preferred basis that is going to help us offset any tax liability, and it's going to help us offset inflation and so forth. Now, the way that we use 7702 plans is different than most advisors use 7702 plans, because if you want to use it as asset protection, then there's a great way to do it. And you can actually generate a lot of income out of your retirement assets if you have a properly structured either index life or whole life under a 7702 platform in order to maximize the return or the distribution rate on those assets in comparison if you didn't have those 7702 plans in place prior to retirement. We also use term life insurance. Now, although term life insurance has a viable period, so you can buy term life insurance, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25, 30. Some companies are now, depending on your age, they may be able to issue up to 40 years of term life insurance. We use it as a way to fill the gap. We use it as a way to create insurability because, yes, you may be very healthy today and you're age 50, but in 10 years from now, perhaps you had a stroke. Now, you may no longer qualify for a 7702 plan at a point in life that if you had it, it would be awesome for you. Well, we use term life insurance in order to protect that insurability, because as long as you have it in place, you're going to be able to convert it within certain ramifications to a permanent 7702 plan, whether it would be a whole life policy or an index life, in the best possible way to help the rest of your retirement assets. And that's why I always say to all my clients that the reason why most Americans fail in retirement is because they're looking at their assets through a microscope. And although that's important because we do audits on each and every one of those products on behalf of our clients, especially those that come in to see us that have already done some planning. In the Tactical Retirement Blueprint, we look at all the decision-making process via a telescope as opposed to a microscope, because the view is totally different. Because if I can set up a portfolio of investments for you that would include fixed index annuities, immediate annuities, deferred annuities, you may have a portfolio of mutual funds, stocks, you may have some real estate, and then we can figure out how to maximize the return out of those investments, how to maximize the income, how to minimize the sequencing of return liabilities and or the withdrawal risk. And even with the immediate annuity type of structure, we can set up a whole life or an index life product under a 7702 umbrella that would allow us to spend down those assets so you can maximize your income in retirement and not have to worry, Bert, listen, if I start using all of these assets and I live to age 85 and then I die, what is my surviving spouse going to have left? He or she may not have much left or anything at all. And I cannot do that. So I'm going to have to take less during our retirement lives in order to make certain that I can protect him or her upon my passing. Well, what if you had a combo plan? What if you had a combo distribution plan that also included that 7702 that would be used as asset replacement? So you can freely use all your retirement assets, principal and interest at the same time, so you can have a much higher standard of living. And then upon your death, the 7702 plans will step in and replace you, the person, and provide income guarantees for your surviving spouse for the rest of her life. So next week, in the final part 4 of the benefits of a tactical retirement blueprint, I'm going to be talking to you about health. I'm going to be talking to you about staying in shape. Because if you want to be healthy in retirement when you get to the top of the mountain, when do you think that you should start working out? When do you think that you should start dieting? When do you think that you should start looking at your health on a regular basis? Do you want to do it at 65, or should you be doing it 10, 15, 20 years earlier? I would argue that the sooner you start, the better. And I'm going to, in next week's episode, I'm going to go into details as to some of the things that I do in order to try to stay as in good a shape and as healthy as I possibly can, because the cost of healthcare in retirement is astronomical. The cost of long-term care in retirement, which is not covered by Medicare, is astronomical. So, and I see it today. I see a number of my clients that are in the go-go years, and they're slowing down significantly, not because they want to, but because their health does not allow them to continue in the go-go years. So always remember, if you want to reach out to me, or if you want my firm and I to put together a tactical retirement blueprint, feel free to reach out to me. You can call me at area code 786-766-1042. You can also call me at 305-304-4770, or you can email me at Bert, B-E-R-T, at bertsalazar.com, BERTSALAZAR.com. And always remember that my goal for you and for your family is to kind of help you change the way that you see things, because when you change the way that you see things, the things that you see change. So once again, thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time today. Stay safe, enjoy your life. Tomorrow's promised to no one, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.